Hello everybody and welcome to the Carshalton and Merton College Invigilator training for 23-24. Just to go over the objectives of this training session. So today's presentation is designed to give you or remind you of the tools, knowledge and experience needed to successfully invigilate an exam. It should enable you to recognise the importance of and have a clear understanding of the invigilator's role and the kind of tasks you may be required to perform. Slides from today's presentation will be made available on Teams, along with the JCQ instructions for conducting exams and the JCQ access arrangement booklet. So the exams team. So the exams team consists of Pratibha Patel, who's the head of exams and admin at both Carshalton and Merton. Myself, Holly Burgess, the senior exams officer for Carshalton and Merton. And we have Vandana, Charlotte and Lottie, the exam administrators across Carshalton and Merton College. We do also have you guys too, invigilators, so you are part of our exam team as well. So why do we need invigilators? The role of an invigilator is to maintain the appropriate environment for the exam and to ensure that the exams are conducted correctly. So an invigilator should always remain calm and professional, be vigilant and aware of emerging situations, empathise as appropriate, but be firm, and to reinforce the rules around the JCQ warning notices. If you're ever in any doubt, you can always summon help from the exams team. The basics of invigilation. So before the exam, you'll be informed of invigilation sessions by email or a calendar invite appointment. It's extremely important that you inform the exams department well in advance if you are unwell or unable to invigilate your allocated session. Please arrive at the exam office at least 60 minutes before the start of a GCSE exam and 30 minutes before an online exam. The exam staff will give you your exams pack containing exam papers, stationery and equipment, and any logins or passwords you may need for an online exam. You'll be asked to sign out any exam papers and then proceed to your exam room. Invigilating alone or as a lead invigilator, setting up the exam room. So you need to display your JCQ notices in a prominent place outside the room. Display the door lists with seating numbers outside the room. Ensure there are no helpful materials displayed on the walls. So if there are, they will need to be taken down or covered up. And if in doubt, you should alert exam staff. Check all clocks are working and can be seen from all desks and that those are synchronized. Check that temperature, lighting and noise levels are all acceptable. And on the whiteboard or the flip chart, write the centre number, exam title, start time and finish time. You'll find all this information within your pack. Desks should be spaced 1.25 metres apart, and that's from the centre of each seat. This will be actioned by our facilities team in advance of the exam. Check your invigilation booklet for access arrangements and permitted materials. Put your seat numbers, desk cards, answer booklets and any permitted materials onto each desk. Your seat numbers ideally need to be placed in a snake pattern. Ensure you have the seating plan, attendance register and exam announcements, including any erratum notices on your invigilator desk. Know your fire and evacuation route. Invigilating as one of a team. So the lead invigilator may assign you tasks. They can include things such as placing seat numbers on the desks, putting exam scripts on desks, making sure the name of the script or the exam matches the one on the exam title poster displayed, putting permitted materials on desks, possibly helping candidates find their seats, ensuring they're in silence and that they've checked their seat number on the door list outside the room. So These are our college posters, so please note that all watches are banned. It's extremely difficult to identify smartwatches. There are so many different variations of these, so JCQ have decided that watches are no longer permitted in the exam room. So these two notices should be displayed outside the room. Water bottles must be clear, they must only be water, and the label must be removed. You need to be familiar with the following JCQ posters. So these must be displayed outside the exam room. So we have the warning to candidates, and we have the no mobile phone and watches / devices.
Entering the exam room. Students should wait to be invited into the room by the invigilator and sit in their allocated seat. Exam conditions apply as soon as the candidates enter the room. Please remind them of this as they're entering. Only the invigilator and exam staff are allowed in the exam room. Staff cannot enter the room under any circumstances. Teaching staff are likely to come to the exam room to wish their candidates luck or to see if they've turned up. They must do this outside the exam room. Staff may want to see the exam paper, and this is also not allowed. Teaching staff may want to remind candidates which topics they have studied. This cannot be done in the exam room, it must be done before they enter. Mobile phones, iPods, MP3 players and watches must be switched off and in their bags. They must not be in candidates' possession, as disqualification will result. Bags and coats must be stored at the back or front of the room, so wherever you think is appropriate. Tell candidates to find their desk. Their names are displayed on the seating plan. Continuously remind candidates that the following items must not be in their possession: mobile phones, AirPods and iPods, watches of any kind, food and drink, unless this is part of the candidate's access arrangements, and only clear bottles of water with the label removed are allowed. Tippets or correction fluid are not allowed, and gel pens are not allowed either. Candidates must have clear plastic pencil cases. Calculators must have no formulae or instructions on them, and calculator lids and geometry set boxes must be placed on the floor under desks. Calculators must not be borrowed from another student during an examination. You should tell candidates to display their college ID on their desk. If they do not have their ID, they need to get a temporary ID from student reception. It's a good idea to ask if they all have ID before they enter the exam room. Nothing is allowed on the candidate's desk except stationery and maths equipment, so no glasses cases. If a candidate is not on your seating plan, they cannot sit the exam, and you should contact the exams office immediately by phone. Starting the exam. Please refer to your invigilator book. If you're in a large room, once candidates are seated, one of your team can start to check ID and complete the register while you're reading the notices. It's important that students should not open or write on scripts until instructed to do so. This is considered malpractice and could mean that the student script is not marked. Ask candidates to check they have the right paper. You can now read the rubric on the front of the paper. You can tell candidates to fill in all the details on the front of the question paper, but not open the paper. You should read any erratum notices to candidates and make the invigilator announcement at the start of the exam. You will be provided with a script to read, and there's an example of this on the next slide. Remind candidates that they are required to stay for the full duration of the exam. There is no early finishing. This is a college rule and not a JCQ rule. Announce the duration of the exam to candidates, and you should double check the duration of the exam on the front of the paper. You may then start the exam. Write the start times and finish times clearly on the board. And new for 23-24, please blue tack your completed attendance list outside the room by 9:15 AM, ready for exams to collect. And please continue to amend and update this attendance list with any late arrivals. You should check the name of the student ID matches the name on the desk card and attendance register to identify the candidate. You should check the picture on the ID card matches the learner sat at the desk. If the candidate is wearing a veil and you cannot make a positive ID, a female invigilator needs to take the candidate to another room to check their identity before the exam starts. If you're the sole invigilator or a male invigilator, please call the exams office for assistance. You should inform the exams office immediately if you're not happy with the identity of a candidate. During the exam, as a lead invigilator for the exam, you are in charge. Invigilators must give their full attention to invigilating the exam. So you must not read, surf the net, do other work, or use mobile phones for anything other than contacting exams. Invigilation must be your sole focus. Invigilators must not talk amongst themselves except to convey important information. You should calculate, record, and display the end time of the exam on the board. Check candidate photo ID and mark the register. This can be done by one of your team if you're in one of the large rooms. Once the exam has started, you should complete the seating plan in your invigilator book from the information on the register. Any late arrivals to their GCSE exams, once the exam has started, send any late students to the late room. However, all access arrangement students must go to their delegated room, so they can't go to the late room. You should respond as quickly as possible when a candidate raises their hand for help. Only answer questions about the rubric on the front of the exam paper. Look out for cheating and malpractice or candidates who may not feel well, and record everything in the log within the invigilator booklet, including toilet breaks. No one is allowed to enter the exam room except roaming invigilators, exam staff, and JCQ inspector. Challenge anyone who tries to enter the room. No talking or conferring is allowed. If a candidate is unwell, you should call the first aiders, that's security and exams. If the candidate does not wish to continue, you should collect in their exam paper, and they may not return to resume the exam. Candidates must be supervised at all times, so toilet breaks must be accompanied and documented in your supervision report. So you need to include the name and number of the student, the desk number, the start time, and the finish time of the break. You should call the toilet break number on your supervision report if a candidate needs the toilet, but remember that the ratio of invigilators to candidates cannot drop below 1 to 30. Take the candidate to the nearest toilet, and if you can, check the cubicle for notes or paper before they enter. Return the candidate to the exam room and notify the lead invigilator of the return time. Ensure that assistance given with access arrangements such as reading, scribing, and prompting complies with the regulations.
The late room. Late room arrivals only. Candidates who arrive late will be sent to the late room up to 59 minutes after the start of the exam. Please note the arrival time of any late candidates on the seating plan and invigilator book, along with the reason for their lateness. Remember to prompt the late arrivals to switch off their mobile phones and put it in their bag. Access arrangement students still go to their designated rooms, even if they are late. Candidates who arrive late must be given the full duration of the exam. If a student arrives 59 minutes after the start of the exam, they will be escorted to the late room by exam staff or senior management. This student is considered very late and must be warned that their work might not be accepted by the awarding body. Very late arrivals will need principal to authorise if they are allowed to sit the exam. This is only authorised in exceptional circumstances. During the exam, dealing with disruption and malpractice. Unexpected situations can arrive at any time. If a disruption occurs inside the room, remain calm and try to make it stop. If you're unable to do this, you can summon help if needed by calling the exams team's number, which is on your supervision report, or you can call security depending on the disruption. If you have to leave the room, make sure the number of invigilators does not drop below the required ratio. Written exams ratio 1 to 30, on-screen tests ratio 1 to 20. Ensure you have a charged mobile phone with you at all times, kept on silent, or that there is a hard-wired phone in the room. Record any noise, disruption, or incidents on the supervision report. Under exam conditions, the use of unauthorized materials, copying or attempting to copy, escaping from supervision or collision is not permitted. If you suspect malpractice, ring the exam office immediately. Tell the students to stop the activity immediately, remove the unauthorized material, and inform the student that any malpractice will be reported to the board. Student must be allowed to continue the exam. Record the incident in the log. Include the names, candidate numbers, and times. You must keep unauthorized material as evidence. Bring the student to the exam office at the end of the exam to make a statement. If you are unsure of any procedure, always consult the exam office. Do not make decisions alone if you're unsure. Mobile phones. Candidates should not bring their mobile phones into the exam room, but they will. Candidates' phones must be switched off and stored in their bags or in provided envelopes. If a mobile phone rings during the exam, find it as quick as possible and call the exam office. Someone from the exam team will collect the bag, and then please escort the student to the exam office at the end of the exam. Allow the exam to continue in the normal way. Record the time the phone rang and actions you took in your Invigilator log. We will ask for a report on headed paper when the exam is over. Do not forget to switch off your own mobile phone to silent before the start of the exam. Malpractice. Centre malpractice may also occur. Examples are not maintaining the security of the exam paper, helping candidates even with the meaning of a word, not reporting that a candidate has a mobile phone in their possession, allowing candidates extra time when it is approved, and sitting an exam for a candidate. If you suspect centre malpractice or think that you may have accidentally caused malpractice, you must report it to the exam office and keep all details in your invigilation log. Finishing the exam. At the end of the exam, instruct candidates to stop writing and put down their pens. Instruct candidates to stay seated until they are told to leave. In a large room, you should have your team spread out to identify anyone who's continuing to write. Remind them to check all details on their exam scripts. The front of the exam paper should be completed correctly and signed. Remind candidates that they are still under exam conditions until all scripts have been collected, and that then they are allowed to leave. Collect all papers, including rough work. No papers or exam materials should leave the room with the student. This is a good time to check the front of the papers have been filled out correctly. If a student has a word processor, make sure the USB is printed and each paper has been signed by the student. Finishing the exam. Count the scripts in and make sure you have the same number you were given and it equals the same amount that you have to return. Please return these papers in candidate number order. Collect all equipment that was given to candidates like pens, pencils, calculators, or geometry sets, if they were permitted in the exam. Once everything has been collected, you can instruct candidates to leave the room row by row in silence. Gather everything together to return to the exams office. Please then return a tidy exam box and remember to return any clocks. Do not leave the scripts unattended at any time. Do not read or allow anyone else to read the candidate's script. Inform the exam office of any incidents and hand in any completed forms. Please ensure you are familiar with the Disability Discrimination Act, as it's not just applicable for exams but throughout the whole college. We are required to ensure that disabled learners are treated fairly and equally.
Access arrangements. Access arrangements are pre-exam arrangements made on behalf of the candidate with specific needs. For example, an extra time allowance, rest breaks, use of reader, scribe, word processor, or modified question paper. Access arrangement candidates are often seated in separate rooms. You may therefore be invigilating an exam with only one candidate in the room. Exactly the same rules apply with respect to invigilation. If you are invigilating an exam for the reader or scribe, there may be a member of inclusive learning in the room who will be reading, scribing for the candidate. Ensure you are familiar with the access arrangement section of JCQ instructions for conducting exams before you invigilate a candidate with access arrangements. These are posted on the examination section of the staff intranet. The exam office will inform you how long the exam will be. This will be different to that on the front of the exam paper because of their extra time. Please note the person appointed for invigilating must not be the candidate's own subject teacher or learning support assistant. Access arrangements, please see these are the abbreviations we use for access arrangements. Inspection. Every centre will receive an unannounced visit from a JCQ inspector. Familiarise yourself with the JCQ awarding body regulations. Be confident that you can identify all candidates. Be confident in your knowledge of the regulations that are maintaining the integrity of the exam and that you can identify candidates. Challenge anyone who enters the exam room, even the inspector, if not accompanied. He or she will expect to be challenged. Inspectors will make sure invigilators are positioned so they can see candidates at all time. They will ask to see the attendance list, seating plans, and the ICE booklet, JCQ ICE booklet. They will inspect the room, layout, conditions, notices, and clocks, and ensure that the required information, such as the start and finish times, is clearly displayed. They will check for any unauthorized material on the desks. So, summary: always remain calm. Consider the security and integrity of the exam. Consider JCQ inspection. Identify every student. Take a register. Deal with malpractice and keep a written record of who, what, and when. Maintain the required invigilator candidate ratio at all times. Deal with disruption, deal with emergencies, and never assume. If in doubt, always consult the exams office. Additional information. Evacuation procedures. Know where the nearest fire exits are. Stop candidates from writing and make a note of the time. Remind candidates that they must stay under exam conditions at all times, even outside the building. Collect the attendance register. Advise candidates to leave all papers, scripts, and belongings in the room and to leave the room calmly in silence. Candidates must not talk to each other and must stay under exam conditions. Lock the door only if you are confident that all candidates have left and if you have a key. Remember, health and safety is paramount. As long as the candidates remain under exam conditions, they can be re-entered into the exam without loss of time. Special consideration. Special consideration is a post-exam adjustment made to the candidate's mark by the awarding body as a result of a temporary injury, illness, or indisposition at the time of the exam. The invigilator's role is to keep a record of events in your invigilator handbook. This information may be required by the awarding body when processing applications for special considerations. Examples of when we would apply for a special consideration are emergency evacuation, illness during the exam, noise interruptions lasting for some time. The exams office will ask you to write up a report after the exam if it is decided that special consideration should be applied for. On-screen testing. The same invigilation procedure applies for online tests. The exam posters will already be displayed when you arrive. Instead of desk cards, each candidate will have a paper login sheet with a username and a password and a key code. These are placed by the PCs before the candidate enters the room. The test is usually timed by the PC, in which case you do not need to write the start and finish time on the board. The exams office will inform you if it's different. And now, once all announcements have been made, as for paper-based tests, tell the candidates to log on to their tests using the details on their login sheet and follow the on-screen instructions. For some exams, we'll also provide students with a PIN, but do this after your announcement. In case of IT failure, always call the exams office. We will then contact IT services for assistance.
And finally, the JCQ website is a good source of information. The Icebook and Access Arrangement booklets can be found on the Teams page. You can also Google JCQ Icebooklet 2324. Do not forget to complete the invigilation training form to ensure your attendance on this training has been recorded. You can find a link to the form below and also use the QR code currently on screen. Thank you very much for your time and good luck for your future invigilation sessions.